Welcome to the Homeschool High School podcast, brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. I'm Vicki, and I am so excited because I get to meet again on the screen an old friend that, we met like 10 years ago at our beloved 2-to-1 conference. So this is Suzanne Gose, and she is from FlipFlop Spanish. So have you ever heard a cooler name for anything? Oh my goodness. So Suzanne, tell us a little bit about you and your homeschool journey.
Okay, so I was a public school teacher way back before babies. I know it's hard to remember. There was a time when we all didn't have babies, and then this part started. So back in the day, I was a public school teacher. I taught Spanish and public speaking, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was going to fix it from the inside out. And then when baby number one surprised us, we decided I would stay home and make sure no daycare and things like that until he got to kindergarten age. And I was really bored. It was very boring. That baby was not near as challenging as 80 public school students in middle school and high school. Yeah. So I had heard about these people called homeschoolers and thought they were fairly psychotic, but I thought that's okay. I'll maybe let them use up my daytime hours a little bit more. And so I emailed and said, does anybody want like a Spanish tutor or a Spanish class? And the next morning I had 42 emails in my inbox, which was a bunch back then.
Yeah.
And so I started my classes back when my firstborn was 9 months old. I met homeschoolers and I was smitten. I had no idea that teenagers could look you in the eye, lean forward and be interested. Thank you for class and like be interested in my well-being as an adult. It was shocking to me. I did not know teenagers had that bone in them.
Yeah.
And so I asked all the parents, I said, what are y'all doing? Because I want my tiny little baby to turn out like these kids right here.
Yes.
And they all just shrugged their shoulders and were like, I mean, we just homeschool. I don't know. And so boom, I became a homeschooler.
Well, and I think it fits your personality. You're such a friendly person. When we met way back at 2-to-1, we were just, it's a very relaxed conference.
Yes.
And I remember us hanging out in the hotel room, just chit-chatting to, I don't know what hour of the night.
I don't know why you let me in your room, but you did. And I don't think I left till like midnight. We said, we got to go to bed.
Wild version of homeschool mom party. And, we're sitting around eating snacks and talking till midnight. Yeah. So, but it's always stayed in my mind, like FlipFlop Spanish. What a cool thing. And then when we reconnected just recently, I go, oh my goodness, here's Suzanne again. It's so wonderful to see you and talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how on earth did you come up with the name FlipFlop?
Right. FlipFlop. So back when I was making all those packets for those homeschoolers and creating my own curriculum, because I couldn't find anything that was, once a week type of thing. So I started making my own. People started asking, hey, I can't come to the classes. It doesn't fit my schedule or whatever. Can you just print the packets for me? So I started doing that. And my husband pointed out I should get published. And I thought, well, I want something that is automatically reviewing. And so I put one page right side up and one page upside down. And so our initial workbook, which is, it's not even our main thing anymore, but back then that was my main thing was a workbook. And so we called it FlipFlop because you work through it one way, flip it upside down and work back to the front. And you kind of accidentally see all the stuff you've already done.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So then I added the flashcards, which that's our flagship now because my second kid has visual processing disorder. And so kid number one loved workbooks, ate them up. Kid number two would not touch a pencil. And so we came up with the flashcards, and then I saw everybody gravitate towards this non-reading, like you don't have to read, and it trains you to think in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so it still worked with the FlipFlop, right? You pick it up, flip it over, flop it down. So we just kept the name FlipFlop Spanish. And
so for teens with learning issues,
yes,
this is a nice way to introduce Spanish and kind of help them to think that way.
Yes, it's very therapeutic. And my boy, it really helped him because he was able to, he was like, oh, I'm not dumb. And, and that was gutting when he said that to me.
Yeah.
But no, you're not dumb. You have a processing thing, but you can think in Spanish. You can put together sentences. And it was really therapeutic because he could actually lay those cards down and it helped him with, it was therapy.
Yeah.
Speaking in 2 languages with the
Yeah.
photos only, it was great.
Yeah.
So
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So we were talking about motivating teens, like there's all kinds of teens, and a lot of times thinking about, oh, I've got to have like a world language on the transcript. I don't really want to do that.
yeah,
So we're talking about how to help teens find their why,
yes,
and then a way that works for them. So
yeah.
let's talk about that. Like how, as you've been working with teens, what are ways that you have found to help teens find their why for
Right.
learning Spanish or any world language?
It's super important, especially with Spanish, because we're all kind of trained to be monolingual, and they just check
Mm-hmm.
it off. They put on their transcript and they don't ever use it
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't found that motivation. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a few different ways. One of them is just that it's fun, it's
Yeah.
interesting, and so it's a decoding thing. So if you can make it game like with the flashcards, speed rounds, charades, memorization, beating mom. Like if you put your flashcards on a ring and he puts his flashcards on a ring, who can go faster?
Mm-hmm.
They love to show off their memory
Mm-hmm.
against you. And so just competition is a good why. But long term, I would say the biggest thing that helps students to be motivated is the industry recognizing that you can make 10 to 15 grand a year more in any industry if you speak Spanish. It's not any second language. Because
Yeah.
some of my friends went with French, and you don't
That
make the
doesn't work in
more.
the
Yeah,
US.
it's not the
Yeah.
same. It has to be
Yeah.
Spanish, at least in America.
Yeah.
Some places can be Mandarin. So
Mm-hmm.
California or New York, you can do Mandarin. That's bilingual, but
Uh-huh.
Spanish is really by and far the best option.
All right, so let's say that again,
Okay.
because you know what? Especially our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they are starting to think about what happens after they graduate
Yes.
and plan for the future. So, what is it about being, bilingual with Spanish?
$10,000 to $15,000 more per year, which is pretty much a house payment. At least down here in Texas, it's maybe
Mm-hmm.
not as much anymore, but it's basically like getting a free house every month, because that amount of money, you're doing the same job, you're doing the same thing, showing up at the same time for the same length of time, the same place, wearing the same stuff. But because you have the ability to communicate with truly double the number of clients coming into that operation, whether it's construction, retail, nursing, medical, firefighting, anything
Mm-hmm.
technical, all the way up. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a second language, they
Mm-hmm.
usually have a certification program that will, you check that mark, yes, they passed it, $10,000 more minimum, all the way up to
Mm-hmm.
20 and more. It
Mm-hmm.
fluctuates and typically higher. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for why should I do this,
Mm-hmm.
and also job security, right? If there's two people sitting there and one guy needs to be fired, one guy needs to be let go, is it going to be the one that speaks one language or two languages?
So if they're equally qualified and the company's doing layoffs and has to do, cut the payroll, the one that brings the most value to the organization is the one that's going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're thinking, in practical matters, these kids are thinking about the future,
Mm-hmm.
and they can go to college or they can go to a vocational program and get a good job.
Yeah.
But if they are bilingual, especially with Spanish, that very likely their income is going to be significantly higher, better job security also.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's an important thing to think about.
Yes, that's very important. Boys usually gravitate towards that motivation, and then the girls gravitate towards being helpful. It
Yeah.
is such a charge to be this little blonde hair, blue eyed girl, and there's somebody that needs help, and she's trying to communicate, and she can't, and you recognize the Spanish. And even if like in my first year at Baylor, I knew very little Spanish. I didn't take it in high school. I took French. I was silly. And so
Me too.
it was beautiful, right? We took the beautiful
Yeah.
language.
Ah oui, c'est bon.
Yes. And so we loved it. But my first year at Baylor, I knew just enough to help somebody, and nobody else could.
Oh, oh,
What if I hadn't been there? What if I didn't know
yeah.
Spanish? What if I continued on with my French? That poor
Mhm.
lady would still be, it would have been wasted
Okay.
time.
So stop and tell that story about when you helped the person. So you're a young person with just a little bit of Spanish.
Yes,
Tell that story.
one semester. And so I'm walking because I was a poor college student. So I walked everywhere. I rode my
Mhm.
bike,
Mhm.
and there was a lady that her I guess, I don't know if it was a flat tire or what. She had car problems. Like I said, Spanish wasn't so great at that point. The car didn't go and she needed help. She couldn't find a phone. That was before phones.
Oh, yeah.
And she didn't know where to go. She had 2 kids and she's like, where's a phone? Where's a phone? And everybody's just looking around. And there's not a whole bunch of people. There's probably maybe 10 people. But she kept on saying, where's a phone? Can you help me find a phone? And I understood. And I was like, and I was able to communicate to her. It's that way, to the right, the door that's red. And I couldn't stay. I had to get to class and blah, blah, blah. But I could set her on the right way and get her going.
So you knew enough Spanish that this poor stressed mama,
yes,
you heard her say, where's a phone? You knew enough Spanish to know that's what she was asking for. And you knew enough Spanish to give her directions.
Yes.
And she could get some help that she needed.
Yes. It was and I went, whoa, this is worth it. Because, that's going to happen, especially down here in Texas, but really anywhere. Why not increase your influence? And so that's not talking about brain health and industry and all the other things. There's so many other reasons to do it. But I think those two, from job security and being able to provide for your family or yourself, and then being able to influence the world, double the number of people.
Yes.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. I know for our teens who need volunteer hours, if they have a little bit of Spanish, like our family doctor he's part of what's called an open table network where the patients in his practice can volunteer helping with other patients. It stays within some HIPAA parameters. But one of the things that they need is some basic Spanish translating. And so high schoolers or moms with extra time will come in sometimes and help on the nights where they'll do a clinic for our local Spanish population, and to have the young people come and build their transcripts, with some wonderful volunteer hours with basic Spanish skills. So I love that. Like the idea of we can learn a language not because we have to have it on the transcript, which a lot of kids do, but it makes the world a better place. It makes us feel good.
And it deepens, it enriches your life because friendships come out of that they wouldn't otherwise happen, and it sets you apart. And what else do we want to be but set apart? Yes,
absolutely. All right. Are there other reasons a young person might want to learn Spanish?
Absolutely. So brain health, quick-wittedness, memory, interpersonal communications. It says, think of learning a second language like doing basic foundational exercises. So for a basketball player, running laps, doing push-ups, things like that. Do I need to do push-ups every day to win the game? No, that's not going to win the game. But because you did the push-ups, it makes those other things work better, right?
Yes.
Same idea. So this is a background exercise in your brain that helps you to memorize all kinds of facts, science, history. All of your scores are going to go up. Your interpersonal relationships, it's connecting synapses in your brain, so you're able to read people's faces better, their tone better, especially for boys who are sometimes they're kind of lost, right? They're like, I don't know, is she angry, happy, or sad? I have no idea what's happening right now. And so these are the background muscles that they need to fire those synapses that simply nothing else does it. Math facts don't do it. Art, music, nothing does it. It's right up here in the front part of your head, and it stays gray and shriveled unless you wake it up with a second language.
I love the psychology end of things. I'm a counselor, so I like that.
Oh, okay, good.
And we know that our brains are enormously complicated, and that if you exercise the different parts of your brain, it helps in all different ways. So, get one part strengthened.
Yes.
It's going to help other parts of the brain. And I did not know that about learning a world language helps exercise some of your oh golly, what part of the prefrontal cortex? Something.
I know it's in the front. Yeah. I know. I can point it to on a map.
Yeah, but it makes sense. And so the way the interpersonal skills, the reading, the logic, critical thinking that you need to learn a world language is going to strengthen a bunch of different areas in your brain and good infrastructure.
Right. The infrastructure is a good way to put it because it's so different than every other language. Science, history, those are facts and you do apply them, but it's very different than the tool of
Mm-hmm.
communication. And so it's that second language that causes you to communicate and wakes it up in a way that nothing else can. ASL doesn't quite even work the same way. ASL works, but it's not like like dementia patients. If they're bilingual, they're 10 years older than the average dementia patient.
Oh,
You get 10 more
interesting.
years. You get a decade more of brain health, memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, and cognitive abilities, taking care of your extremities, being able to use your fingers, walking, steadiness, all that stuff. If you're bilingual, you have a decade more of healthy life than the monolingual counterpart.
I am so working on my world languages. I play with them, but that makes me even more motivated.
I'll
Yeah.
have to send you a FlipFlop Spanish, and you can move them around
I'm
and
going
do
to
therapy.
do that.
It'll be great.
I'm going to do that. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah. Okay. Any other reasons why we might want to motivate that might help our teens?
I think the best thing is that it's cool. Like, it's cool. It's super cool to be able to order in another language, to be able to understand something that other people can't. It's something like being able to play guitar when nobody else can, or being able to play piano, or it's like kind of a hidden talent that you don't walk around wearing a badge on it. Everybody expects you to know your math, and you should have read these classics, and you should be at this reading level, and your handwriting should look like this. But nobody expects you to be fluent or close to fluent in a second, especially in Spanish. And it's like, whoa, you can help. That's like it's like a superpower. And so I think, for teens that say, yeah, I want to be different, fluent, because Americans aren't. They just aren't.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right. So, if we just shared this little part of this podcast episode with our teens, you would have some motivated teens.
I hope so.
Now let's think about okay. All right. A lot of Spanish curriculum, not all of it, but a lot of it is a textbook that's grammar heavy or throws you into immersion with not much structure. And so teens get very frustrated.
Yes.
So tell us about how FlipFlop Spanish works. So we know there's some flashcards and some FlipFlop. So tell us how it is because I know it's a unique program.
Right. So I didn't think about it, but I'll go ahead and let's see. I have this in front of me. Let me see. I didn't prepare, but I have my little cards here. So here's the necesito card, right? Here's, let's see if I can do this. I need necesito. And then you can say, I need, what is that? A pencil? El lápiz. So now you got a sentence. Necesito el lápiz. So it's training your brain to think in Spanish rather than read and translate. If you start with see it and say it, which is the curriculum that leads you through it, it's going to feel little to you. It's going to feel easy because it works for 3-year-olds all the way up to 9th and 10th graders. But you still start with it. On the back, we do have the Spanish, English, and the phonetic spelling. So if you want to, you can, but you want to train your brain to think in Spanish, not read and translate. Once you start laying those sentences out, you're training your brain, right? Muscle memory, learning how to serve a tennis ball or bounce a basketball. Now your brain can do it. That way, when you get to the textbook, and I don't have it with me, but my high school level of Spanish Geniuses is a video course. I'm the teacher. So if you don't like me, don't subscribe because I'm the one that's teaching it. But Spanish Geniuses is the one that does have a textbook. It has paragraphs. You do have to memorize vocabulary, and there's grammar.
Because you have to do that to get a high school credit. Yeah.
But if you start with your flashcards and you're just putting together sentences, and you get to say things like, here's, we can change it up. So now you're using the series model, necesito las llaves. And so you'll be able to say a whole sentence, but you get to build it with pictures, no writing, no drill. Yeah. That's the beginning. Give yourself the 5 weeks. I have a little quick start guide for just the green set. So you don't have to do the whole curriculum. Maybe you're a junior and you're like, whoa, I didn't do see it and say it. I don't want to struggle. I have a 5-week quick start guide. Then you go into the high school curriculum and you're going to be amazed at how you're not overwhelmed. It's not grammar heavy. I won't say it's grammar heavy, but it's definitely got grammar in it.
Because you have to, you have to have some grammar. But what the unique thing about FlipFlop Spanish is that you're starting out in thinking in pictures and sentences, and then going to the mechanics.
Yes.
And
so you get used to the pattern.
Yeah.
So here we have, I need the keys. And now we can say, I need to find. Necesito encontrar las llaves. So with just very simple photos, and you're learning one card at a time. This right here is even fast. And you're usually moving it around on the table. I just have my little stand because I'm trying to learn German, and so I put the German cards up on the windowsill. And so we have FlipFlop German, we have FlipFlop French. But
do you really?
Yeah.
I know, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have the whole curriculum yet. We just have the green set. But once I find a native speaker or somebody that I can trust who's very fluent to do it, then we'll have the whole curriculum. It's just I want to vet it. I want to make sure I'm confident in anything we put out.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. So I just I like Suzanne, and it helps if you like the teacher, you know, like for those who are just listening to the podcast, you can hear the smile on her face. So those who get to watch the video, you get to see her smile.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I'm showing you the cards and I forgot y'all are listening. Sorry.
Well, there's folks watching the video, and those that are listening on the podcast can hear you say it. So it's all good. Okay. All right. So Suzanne, I am so inspired, and my kids are all grown, so now I'm just going to learn it. All right. So tell us how to get in touch with you. How did they find FlipFlop Spanish?
So flipflopspanish.com is the best way. That's where you're going to start, and you'll see Whole Family Spanish, which will have the whole curriculum. It's a 2-year curriculum for everybody together with those flashcards. As young as 3, all the way up to senior citizens will benefit. And then on there too, you can find Spanish Geniuses, and then that will go to the video subscription. So if you just have 9th and 10th graders and higher, then do the video course. You don't have to do the 2-year curriculum first. But if you have anybody over the 9th grade, start with flashcards. Make it easy and fun. And there's games and there's charades and Pictionary. It's so fun.
By the time they get to high school, it'll be second nature. That's right. Yeah, and then for our teens, they can look up and take the Spanish Geniuses, and they'll get the inspiration, but also then the mechanics that they will need too. So, yes. Any other place? You got Facebook or?
Yes, I got Facebook. It's FlipFlop Spanish, and I combined the pages together because it was too much. So I have FlipFlop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses all on one page.
Good.
And then I'm on Instagram. You can find FlipFlop Spanish there. And I think those are my main 2 that I'm active on. But you can always email me. It doesn't get outsourced to India or anything. It comes right to me, and I will answer you within 24 hours typically.
Very good. And we'll just put links to all of that in the show notes. So let's get our teens, let them think about okay, this is a wonderful way to change the world, to be a happy person, but also income-wise, it could be a definite asset to be bilingual in Spanish. So contact Suzanne at Suzanne at FlipFlop Spanish. And one of these days, we'll get to go to conferences again and see each other there, and we'll sit up and eat snacks and talk till midnight. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. So this has been the Homeschool High School podcast, brought to you by 7sistershomeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. Thank you, Seth, for editing, and we will see everybody next week.